好，大家早晨。
Good morning. Welcome to the meeting. Thank you for being punctual. Agenda item 1 information papers issued since the last meeting. No information paper has been issued by the Secretariat so far. Agenda item 2 items for discussion at the next meeting. Please refer to LC paper number CB bracket 3698/2025 bracket 01 and paper number CB bracket 3698/2025 bracket 02. The next regular meeting will be held on the 16th of June this year at 10:45 a.m. The administration suggests that we discuss the following items. 1. Leadership and Talent Development Program for Civil Servants. And 2. Latest progress of the Civil Service College's work in enhancing training. There will be a rather detailed discussion on talent training next time. Let's see if members have any particular views on the items to be discussed next time. If not, we will discuss the above two items at the next meeting. I'd like to remind members who have signed up for the duty visit to Shenzhen to attend the visit on the 26th of May, on Monday. The Secretariat will issue the detailed arrangements to members joining the delegation. Agenda item 3. Update on family-friendly employment measures for government employees. Please refer to LC paper number CB bracket 3698/2025 bracket 03 and paper number CB bracket 3698/2025 bracket 04. Let's have the clerk welcome the government representatives to join us. Members who'd like to speak, please press the request to speak button. Seven members have asked to speak. They are Dr. Frankie An, Mr. Chao Xiu Chung, Mr. Benson Luke, Mr. Dennis Leung, Dr. Johnny Mr. Ronick Chen, Mr. Kingsley Wong, and Mr. Kwok Wai Kang. Let me first invite Mrs. Ingrid Yun, Secretary for the Civil Service, to walk us through the paper. Thank you, Madam Chair. The government is committed to creating a family-friendly working environment to enable its employees to cope with both work and family commitments. In recent years, we've been striking a balance between the needs of employees maintaining the quality of public services and the prudent use of public money. We have introduced new measures and we've also enhanced existing measures. Today, we're going to report to members about the latest update on our work in this regard. For 2 years in a row, the government has rolled out different leave arrangements. There are 3 types. They include compassionate leave, which were rolled out since last April, as well as childcare leave, which was rolled out in April this year. For those regardless of their service conditions as well as duration of service, they can take at most 3 days of compassionate leave and marriage leave. Marriage leave and compassionate leave was rolled out in last April, and since last April till this December, we've got 2,800 applications for compassionate leave and marriage leave, and 8,000 government employees were granted compassionate leave. For employees with children under the age of 3, they can take a 3-day childcare leave. And the annual cycle for childcare leave is determined based on the child's date of birth. For example, if a child was born on the 1st of May this year, the employee can take the 3 days of childcare leave during the period from that day to the 30th of April 2026. So far, 12,000 civil servants are eligible for taking childcare leave. Apart from the above 3 types of leave, the government has been taking the lead to offer paternity as well as maternity leave benefits that are more favorable than the statutory requirements. For those who have worked for 40 weeks in a row before taking paternity and maternity leave, they can enjoy full pay maternity and paternity leave. this is better than the arrangement under the employment ordinance, whereby maternity and paternity leave pay are calculated on the basis of 4/5 of the employee's average daily wages. Under special circumstances, in case of insufficient leave balance, with full justifications, civil servants may apply for advance leave of up to 12 days or apply for unpaid vacation leave. Apart from leave arrangements that have to do with employees' family needs, we've also enhanced the special work arrangements on festivals on their eves. Starting from this January, government departments may allow staff to leave work early for up to 2 hours on up to 3 or 5 festivals or their eves, namely Lunar New Year's Eve, Mid-Autumn Festival, Winter Solstice Day, Christmas Eve, and New Year's Eve. Compared with the previous arrangement, one festival's eve, that's New Year's Eve, is added, and the number of days that staff may leave work early increased by 1. As at September 2024, about 140,000 civil servants, as well as about 12,000 non-civil service contract staff and post-retirement service contract staff, are working on a 5-day week pattern. They're about 85% to 87% of all employees of the government, respectively. This is the highest number since the launch of the 5-day week initiative. Also, we still have the revised deduction arrangement. That is, only 5 days of vacation leave will be deducted for every period of continuous absence of 7 calendar days. This ensures that all non-5-day week civil servants can enjoy the same leave deduction arrangements as staff on a 5-day week pattern. The Health Bureau, as well as the Department of Health, has been encouraging different bureaus and departments to roll out the breastfeeding-friendly workplace policy. This allows staff to sustain breastfeeding for a year after childbirth. On some newly completed government premises, there are breastfeeding rooms. Since the end of 2023, we have seen an increase of 180 to about 410 baby care rooms. The increase is about 8%. Also, in response to the different needs of different government departments, we've been engaging full-time and part-time non-civil service contract staff. This measure provides an alternative to a full-time job for employees with family care needs. As at June 2024, we have offered 6,500 part-time contract positions. Starting from last year, we've had clear information on the government's recruitment website to facilitate job seekers to identify such part-time contract jobs. As a good employer, the government will continue to review the current arrangements and listen to the views and suggestions of the staff side and other stakeholders. Under the principle of striking a balance between taking care of its staff's family needs, maintaining the quality of public services, and prudent use of public money, the government will progressively explore room for providing its staff with a family-friendly working environment. Madam Chair, we are happy to listen to members' views and take questions from members. Thank you. I'll open the floor for questions. 4 minutes for each member. Dr. Frankie Yan. Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that the government is taking the lead to roll out various family-friendly employment measures. In recent years, we have seen some new measures which have been quite popular among civil servants. I remember that the Civil Service Bureau has set up a dedicated team studying public affairs and public policies. We have a senior civil servant taking up the positions. I want to know if the administration has done an in-depth study on these family-friendly measures, which include the marriage leave and compassionate leave arrangements, as well as paternity and maternity leave benefits that are more favorable than that offered by under the ordinance. Do these measures help increase the productivity of civil servants? Have the administrative costs gone up because of these measures? Have there been any impacts on the duty shifts of different civil servants? I want to know if the Civil Service Bureau has done a study in this regard. This can serve as an important reference for the labor market. Thank you. Secretary. In year 2024 and this year, we introduced new measures. There have also been regular measures, and these measures have not been implemented for a long time. We need time to observe the outcomes and results. Public policy researches done by the Civil Service Bureau, they compare our practices as well as those in other countries. They do not only study the local policies. If we have time or where appropriate, we will carry out the studies. Well, do you have a timetable or a plan on when you review these measures? For marriage leave and compassionate leave, we don't have a very high number of applications. As for childcare leave, we'll have to take time to observe the situation. I understand that you are not carrying out the study right away because you have just rolled out the childcare leave arrangement for a very short time. I want to know if you have plans for the Civil Service Bureau to conduct the studies. If there is, you may want to take into consideration certain scenarios or academic theories or assumptions in the studies. You'll need statistics, you'll need to collect information in order to compile a thematic study report. I am concerned about this study because many employers want to roll out family-friendly measures, but the administrative cost is high. An employer may roll out these measures, but it may not necessarily boost staff's productivity. So the government should take the lead to collect data in this regard. You should collect views from civil servants, and this can have high reference value for the labor market. So I do hope that the Civil Service Bureau will carry out the study. We may only have the results 5 or 8 years later, but we need to know the outcomes and results. Otherwise, 8 years later, some civil servants may have already left the government and they may no longer be able to provide the information you want. Secretary, well, public policy is not a topic under today's discussion, but I will talk to my colleagues to see whether we'll carry out a study in this regard. Mr. Chow Siu-chung, I support the idea raised by Dr. Frank Yan just now. I hope that after the implementation of these family-friendly measures, we can have a review on whether the measures help boost productivity and work efficiency, and this can serve as an important reference for the private sector. I appreciate that the government has done a lot of work over the past 2 years. Last year, it rolled out the compassionate leave arrangement, and this year, the childcare leave arrangement. Many civil servants told me that the childcare leave arrangement has benefited them a lot. I noticed that the government, as the biggest employer, including the hospital authority, it has followed the government's practice in implementing childcare leave. I hope the government can take the lead in carrying out studies so to set an example for the private sector. On childcare leave, I understand that the government has just rolled out the measure and it cannot have an assessment on the outcome yet. However, I am told by a lot of civil servants that they would like to take childcare leave in half-day or one-day units. Some told me that they would like to start work 2 hours late so that they can take care of their children. They also want to leave work early by a few hours. I hope you can relax the relevant arrangement. I believe the government has already made the start by rolling out the childcare leave. But I do want to see the implementation of flexi work arrangement. I think this is the best practice if you want to roll out the family-friendly measures. As for 5-day week, I was reading documents from 2006. The then Secretary for the Civil Service said 5-day week is a global trend. I think the government has not been able to catch up with the trend over the past 19 years. There is still about 10 to 20% of government employees who are not enjoying the 5-day week pattern. It looks like the Secretary has been lying flat in this regard. You're just leaving individual government departments and bureaus to make the decision. Will you talk to departments which have yet to roll out the 5-day week pattern to see how the situation can be improved?
Thirdly, I note that for parental leave, we have every year approximately 3,000 employees taking advantage of the arrangement. It's less than 3% of the total number of male employees. So has there any plan of the government to review the arrangements? Thank you. Secretary, whether we can take 2-hour units for the taking of leave. I think it should not only apply to childcare leave. Someone made the suggestion for general leave arrangements, but if we are to have 2-hour units, it can pose a problem because with half-day units, there is a buffer of lunch hours. So people can take the lunch hour if necessary for any delays in their commitments. It wouldn't encroach on, say, the afternoon which they did not take leave for. If the unit is in, say, 2 hours, if one is late for a few minutes, the department supervisor unfortunately would have to see that the colleague have another hour deducted in leave. It can, of course, be undesirable. If colleagues are just leaving for a few minutes, we have many colleagues who can accumulate time off so they can use the time off instead to deal with their personal matters. Say, earlier this year we had conducted some drills in Cartex Sports Park, and the officers who attended the drills were given time off so they can use the time off if necessary. Regarding the second question on 5-day work week, as you may know, we have a few premises. We need to make sure it will not increase existing resources needs. It will not increase establishment. And if we are to have 5-day work weeks, they need to work the same number of hours as they are doing 6 workday weeks. Right now, we think maintaining these premises and saving public money are very important. Maintaining establishment is, of course, a part of it to not increase government expenditure. And on the other hand, if we will have work hours decreased with officers switching from 6-day work weeks to 5-day work weeks, it is not a good use of public money either. So we think we are going to maintain the status quo, but it's not that we are not doing anything. We are encouraging departments to make use of technology to enhance manpower efficiency. And I think there is much room for maneuvering at the moment with the use of technology. We have many departments piloting different methods. We do hope that eventually we will have more civil servants working 5-day work weeks instead of 6. Regarding not many civil servants taking parental leave, I don't think it's necessarily because parental leave only is a few days. It may have something to do with the low fertility rate in Hong Kong. We will continue to boost fertility rate with various measures. But again, like I said, we have to strike a balance between welfare provided to civil servants and saving public money. We do not have any plans at the moment to increase parental leave days. Thank you. Mr. Benson Look. Thank you. According to the paper, I do see that the government now has many family-friendly employment measures. There are different leave arrangements. With the newest childcare leave arrangements, we would have civil servants taking more leave. It is that we are catching up with the private sector. We may be even quite competitive against the private sector. I know that some young civil servants think these family-friendly employment measures to be quite attractive and that these help retain them in the civil service. But I've also heard feedback that these civil servants want to move up the ladder and they have wanted to undertake some further studies. And I note that a chapter of the Civil Service Code is on further study. I believe it's chapter 7. If civil servants want to undertake further study, and if such courses are nominated by their supervisors, there would be a 14-day arrangement for them to take further studies, and they may even be entitled to financial assistance. I heard that some civil servants want to move to other departments and they have to take courses and examinations. I understand that for examinations, there are some restrictions for one to take leave to take such examinations. The examinations must be relevant to their work at the moment. So can we relax restrictions to facilitate these civil servants taking leave, paid leave, to take such examinations? Because I think in the end it would benefit the government. Thank you, Secretary. We do know there is a need for civil servants to undertake further studies, but of course we want to have the civil servants' work being related. The course should be related to their work. This is why there is a chapter in the civil service regulations. If the course is not relevant, it honestly may be hard to justify giving them paid leave for that. Say, if they are learning a foreign language that is not exactly necessary, say an indigenous African language, it may be difficult to justify. But of course, I'll leave it to the departments to decide. I would say this. Technology is moving very rapidly. Regarding what courses are recommended, we encourage departments to take a macro perspective, because if they keep the scope a bit too narrow, what colleagues have learned recently may be outdated very soon. So we ask departments to take a macro perspective. Thank you, Mr. Densler. Let me first declare that I have family who is a retired civil servant as well as a current civil servant. I have some reservations as to why we can't switch to fully 5 working day weeks just yet. We are moving relatively slow. Some departments do not implement this arrangement almost altogether. I do know there are some premises at play, but I think we can perhaps adopt a hybrid mode. For departments, maybe they can have some groups of their employees pilot this arrangement for them to gauge the effectiveness of such arrangement. I also urge the Civil Service Bureau to liaise with different labor unions. Some labor unions gave some feedback, but sometimes they were never heard by the departments altogether. I think there needs to be enhanced communication to take forward 5-day work weeks. I do note the administration now has more childcare facilities in some buildings, but the progress is slow. Recently, in the past 1 or 2 years, we visited the airport authority premises, and I note that they have a relatively large place for a child care facility. The rent is affordable, and therefore the fees they charge are very affordable. In fact, there is great demand from their employees for such facilities. So is it possible for the government to lower the rent of childcare facilities so that the fees can be lowered as well? In the end, it will benefit civil servants. Thank you. Secretary, for the departments that can implement 5-day work week arrangements, they have already done so. And for those who cannot fully do so, they already have the group of their officers who can do that. So say for the FEHD, the police force, the LCSC, the departments have 4,100 colleagues who have been testing the 5-day work week arrangement. As I said earlier, we are not doing anything. We have tried our best. We do know some departments are liaising with various unions, but the feedback of unions may not be accepted wholesale because sometimes there are other considerations. We do note, however, there is frequent communication between departments and unions. We do note that some departments even implemented some other measures in response. We encourage departments to continue to communicate with the unions regarding childcare facilities. The facilities of the airport authority, I am not exactly familiar with the situation, so I can't say how much the rent factors into the cost. But in government premises, if we are to have childcare facilities, The problem is if the facilities are to be used by civil servants, we cannot subsidize the services because civil servants are paid by the government. If we are to subsidize such services, it is not a good use of public money. But if the services are not subsidized at all, we have high costs such as staff costs to cover. And in the end, the fees may be quite high for parents. We have done the math. It is not exactly feasible to operate such facilities ourselves and exclusively for civil servants. However, if we are to have more public childcare facilities open to all, and civil servants may take advantage of such facilities as well. With this approach, we believe it is unfeasible. Thank you.
Any follow-up questions? If not, next, Dr. Johnny Ng. Thank you, Madam Chair. The Secretary just now talked a lot about the family-friendly measures. I'm all for them. They include the 5-day week initiative as well as childcare leave. The Secretary has said a lot about the 5-day week pattern. 85% of our civil servants are now on a 5-day week work pattern. I hope the government will continue to increase the percentage of those working on a 5-day week pattern. Apart from leave arrangements, for example, some members just now mentioned about child care measures, and these measures are to encourage childbearing and childbirth in Hong Kong. Apart from these measures, I'd like to ask about counseling support for civil servants with emotional problems. They are under a lot of pressure because of work or family issues. As far as I understand, there are large-scale enterprises that offer hotline services. With just a click on the button on your phone, you can have counseling support. I wonder if the same kind of support can be offered to civil servants. Secretary, we do have such service. We offer emotional counseling as well as services to help employees cope with emotional distress. We have organizations offering such services for us. Civil servants may call up the hotline and seek counseling support. The support they need may not necessarily have to be directly connected with work. We do not ask organizations about what our civil servants have talked about, but from general data, we see that a lot of their emotional problems have to do with their family issues. Regardless of whether the problem have to do with employees' family or their personal problems, we will continue to offer such hotline service. Mr. Ronak Chen, thank you. I declare that I am a member of the standing committee that review the salary of civil servants. As a member of this committee, I listen to members' views about the welfare benefits. I'm glad that the government has been rolling out family-friendly measures to help civil servants balance work and family. I have the following questions. The first is about leave arrangement. 3 months preceding and after marriage, employees can apply for marriage leave. If the employee gets married 3 months before they take office, will you allow them to take marriage leave? Also, by the end of last year, there have been 410 baby care rooms for civil servants. As at the end of last year, how many female civil servants have been eligible for using these baby care facilities? Now, on special work arrangements, on festivals or their eves, for those who cannot benefit from the special work arrangements because of the nature of their work, will you give them a half-day leave as a compensation? Secretary, it's a math problem. On eligibility for applying for marriage leave, as long as they are serving government employees, they can apply for such leave. So if a civil servant gets married 3 months before they take office, they can apply for the 3-day marriage leave. So there is no problem with that. Secondly, how many civil servants have been eligible to use the lactation rooms? We haven't kept such statistics. Not every government employee chooses to use these facilities, so we haven't done a survey in this regard. However, if employees need to use these facilities, departmental management has to give permission for them to use the facilities. We have to ensure that there are suitable facilities for employees who need to use the baby care rooms as well as lactation rooms. As for civil servants who cannot benefit from the special work arrangements, they include, for example, discipline services officers as well as clerical officers who are busy working before special work arrangements or before festivals. We also have Marine Department as well as the Transport Department working during festivals to offer emergency and essential services. How do we take care of those who cannot benefit from the special work arrangements? If we allow these officers to take half-day off after the festivals, there will be certain challenges or difficulties. This is because some government departments, they cannot take leave at all during festivals, and if they allow their officers to take half-day leave afterwards, there will be too many staff on leave. We will see how we can enable civil servants to spend time with their family during festivals or their eves. Next, Mr. Kingsley Wong. I'd like to commend the Secretary for her efforts in rolling out the marriage and compassionate leave arrangement. It does not incur a lot of cost, but it is a very effective measure. Civil servants, they do not enjoy 13-month salary compared to those in the private sector. So these benefits, they entail not a very high cost, but at the same time they benefit civil servants. I have a suggestion as well as a couple of questions. On the 5-day week initiative, I hope the government can step up its promotion. For non-civil service contract staff, 87% of them are working on 5-day week pattern. Can you increase the percentage? Also, I have a suggestion. Family members include parents as well as children-in-law, but siblings aren't included as family members of government employees under the current definition. Siblings are very close to government employees because they have blood relations. Can the definition of family members be extended to cover siblings of government employees. Also, many large-scale enterprises nowadays allow their employees to work from home without affecting the delivery of government service. Will you allow government employees to work from home so that they can take care of their children at home? Secretary, I thank Mr. Wong for his comment on 5-day week. Non-civil service contract staff, more of them are working on a 5-day week pattern. This is because a lot of civil servants who work for disciplined services, they cannot work on a 5-day week pattern. And these posts, they do not engage non-civil service contract staff. Non-civil service contract staff, they engage in clerical work mostly. So it's easier to arrange for NCSC staff to work on a 5-day week pattern. It is not that we are treating civil servants or full-time civil servants poorly. I appreciate the comment about extending the definition of family members to cover siblings. We will look into this. Now, on work from home arrangement. We've had this arrangement during COVID. Even during COVID, we didn't have a high percentage of staff working from home, less than 50% if my memory serves me correctly. It's hard for us to roll out work from home arrangements within the government. We have to ensure that the civil servants do not have direct contact with members of the public on their day-to-day work, and that they do not have to handle any confidential information. Then we can allow that civil servant to work from home. There are very few posts within the civil service who meet the above criteria I mentioned. However, with more frequent use of technology, we may be able to implement work from home arrangements, and we will encourage government departments to explore this. Mr. Kwok Wai-Kung. The government has been introducing family-friendly measures for its employees. This deserves our support as we are seeing more and more such measures. I think this is in line with the international trend. I believe in family-friendly employment measures. And I don't think this is just a gesture of the government to treat civil servants better. It's because we have to be on par with the practices in the private sector in order to retain talent. Also, our party has been emphasizing this. In the past, the SAR government has been taking the lead. For example, the paternity as well as maternity leave arrangement, the government has been taking the lead to roll out these measures. Some members just now said that the 5-day week initiative has been launched for some time. It's time for us to think about whether we can further enhance the scheme. Now, I think the government can further improve its family-friendly measures. Civil servants enjoy stable income. I think it's worth it for the government to launch a pilot scheme within the civil service to encourage childbearing. Of course, the government employee will have to get married first, and then they can think about childbearing. The Singaporean government has been proactively rolling out measures to encourage childbirth. I hope that the SAR government can follow suit by offering more matching services, for example, to encourage marriage and childbearing. The government can then review the effectiveness of these policies to see how it can roll out more incentives for government employees to get married and to give birth. The government should not restrict itself to the 170,000 civil servants, but think about the wider general public as well.
Secretary, I agree. But we have various considerations. Having considered administrative efficiency, resource allocation, if it is right, we will take the lead in promulgating such arrangements. And in fact, parental leave is something innovative for Hong Kong, which we took the lead in introducing. But we need to also consider the fiscal position of the government. We have to be prudent at the moment. Unfortunately, we're still in deficit. That's why. But I can say this. It's not that we'll shelve it altogether. We just need to exercise prudence. We do not have such plans at the moment as a result. We are trying to see if we can make use of technology to replace more manpower tasks, and then we can see if we can promulgate such arrangements. As for whether we can try to boost fertility rate using aggressive measures such as matchmaking, I would say this: we do not have such plans at the moment, and I don't think civil servants have high expectations for us to introduce related measures. If civil servants are interested in such activities, departments are already holding many events for some officers to take advantage of such. We also have some activities that would allow young civil servants to take part in, and maybe it can be a matchmaking opportunity for them. There are many such events held at the moment. Thank you. Ms. Doreen Kong, I do note the administration promulgating many initiatives in recent years that are very family friendly. I, as a female, especially appreciate some of the measures, but there is always more that we can do. I have some suggestions for the administration. Mr. Chao Shu-chung talked about having flexible work arrangements, flexi hours specifically. I think having flexi work hours is the trend. There are parents who like to take their children to school or to see the doctor. We now have an aging population in Hong Kong, so we shouldn't only think about children. We should think about how civil servants may need to take their parents or their father or mother-in-law to the doctor. Is it possible to have them leave for 2 hours to take their seniors to see the doctor and then come back and work late for 2 hours? We need to consider this because we have an aging population. Mr. Dennis Leung also talked about the airport authorities' childcare facilities. I visited facilities myself. They are very good, but honestly, I think it's hard for the government to meet such standards because we have different considerations with resources and manpower. But I would say this, we have, say, in the Admiralty government or Queensway government offices or central government offices, we have much space. Can we have NGO operate childcare facilities? I think it would be hard for the government to operate the facilities themselves, but if we can have in neighborhoods where there are multiple government facilities, such childcare facilities, because I think a lot of people would want to take advantage of that. We have another member talking about counseling services. If civil servants need such counseling services, are such services confidential? I think it does not apply only to civil servants. I heard when private sector employees go to, say, psychiatrists or psychologists, they value very much confidentiality. Next, for breastfeeding rooms, we need to see how many people are using it, and we also need to get some feedback on what people think about the facilities, because that will help us improve the facilities. Thank you. Secretary. Let me first answer the question on counseling. The counseling service is completely confidential. We won't even ask who is making use of such service, who they are, or what kind of service they are seeking exactly. We don't even know. We only ask the relevant organization to have some really broad brush figures, say what area of concern the colleagues are asking about or expressing grievance about, as well as flexible work arrangements. The heads of departments right now already have the power to determine when officers go to work or get off work. But it is not the case that we have working hours applied individually. Indeed. If there is a long-term need for a particular officer to have a different set of working hours, it may be allowed. But let me say this, many work of the government would be a team effort. If one comes late 2 hours while the others come at the designated work hours, it may impede the team's work. If they are not working together, it may not work. So it is something the departments are probably thinking about. As for taking the elderly to see the doctor, as I said earlier, many officers have time off they can take advantage of. They do not necessarily need to take half or 1 day off. They can make use of time off to meet the needs of their elderly family members. If departments allow civil servants to work at different hours, again, the premise would be that it should not affect the work of the entire team. But it is probably difficult to achieve at the moment. As for childcare facilities, actually there's not much space. We have very tight spaces at the moment. With childcare facilities for civil servants specifically. As I said earlier, it would be hard for us to subsidize such services. For public childcare facilities, they are subsidized by the Social Welfare Department. It is hard for us to justify subsidizing facilities only for civil servants, so the fees in the end may be quite high, and civil servants in the end, because of the relatively high fees, may not take advantage of the facilities, so we consider it not exactly financially feasible to operate such facilities for civil servants exclusively. We believe the approach with going with public childcare facilities to be more desirable. We do note your suggestion on lactation rooms, how we should conduct surveys and gauge feedback of civil servants on lactation rooms. Thank you. Mr. Lai Tong Kwok. Thank you. I would like to follow up on what Mr. Chao Siu Chung, Ms. Doreen Kong, and Mr. Lai Tong Kwok said. They talked about working from home and whether we can have leave taken in hourly units. Let me first talk about work from home. During the pandemic, we had some departments, some positions piloting work from home arrangements. In other words, I think under certain circumstances, work from home arrangements should work. We have some large organizations in Hong Kong implementing work from home arrangements. We are talking about the policy, not the implementation on this occasion. If some departments note some of the positions of theirs can implement work from home arrangements, would you allow the departments to explore the option and implement the option? If you do not allow for it policy wise, it is not feasible. We are talking about family friendly employment measures. If people can work from home, people will save time in commute. They can complete work. And on top of that, they will have more time to be with their family, to care for their family members. So I want to ask policy-wise, is this allowed by the Civil Service Bureau? As for taking leave in hourly units, I understand what the secretary said, but I would say this: not all officers have overtime, and even if they did get overtime, they may have already expended the time off. I did hear the secretary say the lunch hour would act as a buffer, and we can actually have people just take 1 hour leave from 12 to 1, and then they can still have the buffer of 1 to 2. I think before we had the administrative arrangements, because everything was on paper, we need to have leave taken in half-day or one-day units. But now we're making use of computer systems. This is a challenge that can be overcome now. If the system can accommodate this, why not allow civil servants another option? We need to keep abreast with the times. We have departments encouraging civil servants to make use of computers and technology more. So I want to ask, is it not worth exploring at all? Thank you.
Secretary, on work from home arrangement during COVID, we had two major considerations. we were able to allow a portion of civil servants to work from home during COVID. We wanted to save civil servants time on commuting to work, and this can reduce the risks of COVID transmission. Also, during COVID, we saw a lot less activities in the community, and there was a much lower demand for government services as well. Therefore, a portion of civil servants were able to work from home without affecting the delivery of public services. Let me put it this way. It's not that there are insurmountable challenges that we cannot overcome, that we are not rolling out work from home arrangements. However, there is a lot of work that has to be taken up by a whole team within the civil service. It's not that we can allow civil servants to, say, work for 3 hours to finish a project. There are often sudden needs or contingency situations that we have to deal with in our day-to-day work. Therefore, we are still seeing difficulties behind rolling out work from home arrangement. The member asked whether we would allow government bureaus and departments to explore whether there is room to launch work from home arrangement. If there are feasible proposals from individual departments, we would be open-minded to discuss the proposals with the government departments concerned. It's not that we, in principle, oppose to implementing work from home arrangements. It's just that we have to take into account our work efficiency as well as our provision of public services. So under the current circumstances, it's hard for us to roll out work from home arrangements. Secondly, like Mr. Lai said, we can redesign our computer programs so that they can help us calculate the number of leaves. Our departmental management has had a lot of experiences in managing civil servants, and according to their experience, it's often hard for civil servants to complete a certain task within a short period of time. Currently, we offer lunch hour to civil servants. Say a civil servant has his lunch hour from 12 to 1, and can he take 1 hour off to bring his child to school or meet with his child's teacher? Well, we have been in talks with the labor unions, and the unions admitted to us that there are merits to allowing civil servants in taking childcare leave in half-day or one-day units. So we currently do not have plans to allow civil servants to take childcare leave on an hourly basis. As I said, we can make better use of technology, but currently we cannot foresee yet how technology can change our work model, so we will keep in view the situation. Mr. Ambrose Lam. Paragraph 15 of the paper mentions that 85% of civil servants enjoy a 5-day week pattern. What kind of civil servants are not benefiting from the 5-day week pattern? And for those who are working on a 5-day week pattern, do they work for 5 days or 5.5 days per week? Say you have 50 staff under a department, can you have them work at staggered hours so that they can all enjoy a 5-day week pattern? Most people in Hong Kong, they work on a 5-day week pattern, and they engage in their own activities on Saturdays and Sundays. Are there needs of civil servants to work on Saturdays or Sundays instead? Can you allow civil servants to work on Saturdays for half a day so that there can be more civil servants working on a 5-day week pattern? Secretary. Government departments who are yet to implement 5-day week pattern, they mostly engage in leisure and recreational services, postal services, enforcement actions, and some of them they offer border control services as well as correctional services. These civil servants, they mostly work for 5.5 days per week. Some of them, they work for 6 days a week. Their daily working hours are a bit different from those who are working on a 5-day week pattern. Some of these civil servants, they work for 5.5 days from Monday to Saturday. There are also civil servants, they have to work continuously for 7 days, for example, because they are on shifts. This is especially the case for disciplined services officers. Even though they might not be working on a 5-day week pattern, they do not necessarily work for half a day on Saturdays. They work on irregular days. For some government departments, we have yet been able to implement the 5-day week pattern because of the nature of their work. Can we have civil servants work for longer hours per day so that they can work on a 5-day week pattern? There may not be tasks for them to engage in so that they can work longer hours each day. We need staff to work on different tasks on a day-to-day basis, so we may not be able to have our civil servants work at staggered hours. Many members of the public, they can only work on their own stuff on Saturdays. Are there civil servants who ask to work on Saturdays? Well, at border control points, it's rather busy on Saturdays and Sundays. So civil servants who work at border control points, well, they are usually on shifts. Even if they get to work on a 5-day week pattern, they may not necessarily be able to take Saturdays or Sundays off. For example, the counseling centers under the Labor Department, well, they used to offer services on Saturdays. Nowadays, a lot of services or information are provided online, so they can now work on a 5-day week pattern. Now it's my turn. I thank the government for its effort in rolling out all these family-friendly measures. Members of this council have also been working hard to promote these family-friendly measures. I thank the Secretary for responding or heeding our calls. I care about the breastfeeding-friendly workplace. I think female civil servants, they care more about these policies. People may think that it's good enough to have lactation rooms or breastfeeding facilities. However, users may care about what kind of devices are offered in these facilities and whether it would embarrass them when they make use of these devices and facilities. You can rely on civil servants' word of mouth. If I am to give birth, I would ask my colleagues for advice if they have made use of these devices. I've once been to a very nice place with breastfeeding facilities and baby care rooms. But the facilities were cordoned off. There wasn't even tissue paper. There are facilities that have been left idle on commercial premises. I've also heard from some private companies that meeting rooms are used as breastfeeding facilities, and female staff could only use the facilities within a certain period of time. This could be very embarrassing for female staff. I think you should compare different good practices. If there are good practices, you can share them to improve the services and facilities. Now, on counseling support, I think new parents, including male civil servants, they need counseling support. According to statistics, there are men in Hong Kong who suffer from depression issues after childbirth. 1/4 of the men in Hong Kong, they suffer from depression symptoms during the first 12 weeks after childbirth. We have 16 to 30% in terms of the percentage, and in Singapore is about 3 to 5%. Will you pay special attention to male civil servants in order to offer them with more support? Also, I have a question for paternity leave arrangement. Do male civil servants have to take paternity leave within a certain window? Will there be buffer? Also, we've seen miscarriages because people nowadays give birth at an old age. For those who suffer from miscarriages, will their partners be able to take leave as well? Secretary, on breastfeeding facilities within the government, there are fixed breastfeeding facilities. That means you cannot turn a meeting room into a breastfeeding room. You cannot turn a pantry into a lactation room. There are fixed breastfeeding facilities. In these facilities, we allow 2 sessions lasting for 30 minutes each within the 8-hour working hours for civil servants. And for those who have given birth for a year, within a year's time after their childbirth, they can make use of facilities. Also, there have to be private spaces in these facilities. There must be chairs, tables with electric outlets for users. There also have to be refrigerating facilities for safe storage of expressed breast milk. As mentioned, we will collect views from civil servants to see what kind of new facilities we should introduce and how we can improve these facilities. We'll also see whether there are good practices for individual departments and bureaus. Now, on emotional counseling support, I thank Madam Chair for her suggestions. The best way for us to follow up on this is to talk to the organizations that provide such services so that they can pay more attention to the needs of our male employees. On paternity leave, civil servants who have worked for 40 weeks for the government, they are entitled to paternity leave. We currently offer 5 days of paternity leave to those eligible. Four weeks before childbirth or 8 weeks after childbirth, civil servants may take paternity leave. For female staff, if they suffer from miscarriages, they can apply for sick leave. We offer quite sufficient sick leave for our civil servants. Civil servants are entitled to 180 days of sick leave. It is only after you have taken 180 days of sick leave that you will only get half of your pay for further sick leaves. For male civil servants, if their wives suffer from miscarriages and if they need to take care of their wives because of this, they are also entitled to leave benefits. We don't have sick leaves for male staff, and they can take their own vacation leave for that purpose.
我好快啫。
Mr. Kong speaking for the second round. I will be brief. I have a suggestion. Secretary said they would have flexible arrangements for lactation facilities or lactation sessions after a year. But I think if possible, mothers would want to breastfeed their children in the second and third years as well after childbirth. So I want to ask if you can have the period extended to 2 years at least. I know that in somewhere overseas they would breastfeed until their children are 4, and I do see the children being more healthy. I urge the administration to consider my suggestion. I know at least 3 cities in the world, London, Singapore, and, well, New South Wales in Australia. They have co-working spaces in different locations in their cities for their civil servants to work. This provides convenience because if the civil servants have to take their children or their parents to see a doctor, they may not be able to get to their work location in time. So if they can work in another location with, say, simply a computer available, they can work in these co-working spaces. Would the administration consider a model like this? Thank you, Secretary. We do encourage departments to allow for lactation sessions beyond 1 year of colleagues having given birth to their children. We do have some personal computers available to the more senior civil servants, but for the lower level civil servants, they may not really benefit from the co-working spaces. Also, for senior civil servants, sometimes they have to deal with confidential matters. If they work in a co-working space, it may not be ideal for dealing with confidential matters. Most communication is electronic now, but we still have, say, letters sent from citizens or some application forms that are still submitted in paper form. It may not be convenient if colleagues are not working in their specific offices to deal with these paperwork. But I would say this. We have seen the model of work changing very rapidly, not just for the public sector, but also the private sector. If we can overcome such challenges with technology, we keep an open mind, and we do note the suggestions of members. They are very good suggestions. Thank you. If there are no further comments from members on this item, we'll move on to the next agenda item. We will move on to the next agenda item, that is promotion of volunteer service in the civil service and publicizing good stories of civil servants. I now ask the Secretary to brief members on the paper. The Civil Service Bureau has been encouraging civil servants to participate in volunteer service during spare time to serve the community. Other than showing civil servants care for society and dedication to serving the public, volunteerism can enhance the solidarity of the civil service and bolster staff morale. We had civil servants working hours of 110,000 hours. This is a significant increase from 2023. It really shows the activeness of civil servants volunteer teams. In order to commend those who have actively participated in volunteerism, we launched last year the Civil Service Volunteer Commendation Scheme. We have really positive response. We have in total 440 nominations submitted by bureaus and departments. A total of 14 teams and 337 individuals were honored. We are now inviting the next round of nominations, and we will have the commendations in Q3 of this year. We have 75 volunteer teams having volunteer activities with some 4,200 participating volunteers. Civil service volunteer service in celebration of the founding of the PRC. It has served the community while celebrating the 75th anniversary of the founding of the PRC. We also have volunteers earmarked for the National Games later this year. This is a signature national event, and many civil servants want to take part as volunteers for the successful conducting of the games. They want to make contributions. There will be more than 3,700 civil service volunteers participating in the volunteer program. They will provide various services in support. On strengthening collaboration with different sectors of the community, we have been working with the Jockey Club, and with the sponsorship of the Jockey Club, we have had multiple volunteer activities held. We will also work with the Y Elites Association to have their hostel residents take part in volunteer activities. We also will work with care teams, leveraging on their expertise and knowledge about the neighborhood, hold more volunteer activities. We have seen the Civil Service Bureau and Wong Tai Sin District Office working together to visit residents and change elderly households' light bulbs to energy efficient light bulbs to show care for the elderly. We have also selected a number of inspiring stories of volunteer service from the award-winning teams of the Civil Service Volunteer Commendation Scheme and produced a short video with the Radio Television Hong Kong. The video was broadcast on multiple platforms. We have seen some heartwarming stories being shared, and through various channels we have been able to demonstrate how passionate civil servants are in volunteerism. We will continue to publish the good stories of the work of various civil servants, as well as the commendations received by departments or the exchanges made by civil servants to showcase to the public the work and contribution of civil servants. We will also play to students some good stories of civil servants videos to attract them to join civil service after they graduate. We will continue to tell good stories of civil servants. This is the end of my presentation. I'm more than willing to take questions from members. Thank you. We have 5 members who have pressed the request to speak button. Mr. Tony Tse, Dr. So Chen Wing, Dr. Johnny Mr. Dennis Lang, Mr. Kwok Wai Kang. Mr. Tony Tse. Thank you. Chair, I have all along supported civil servants in participating in volunteer activities. I actually gave some comments myself on this issue or topic earlier. I do note there is a significant increase in the number of volunteers as well as the number of volunteer hours. There is a commendation scheme now, which I appreciate, but I would say this. With the recognition given, it should not focus only on the number of hours done. We need to focus on quality. What kind of services have been provided? I do note that there is something innovative, as said in the paper, say some collaboration with different stakeholders. I think the Secretary can perhaps elaborate on this so that we can find out more about this. And I want to ask if the Civil Service Bureau will coordinate some of the volunteer activities, because we don't want the efforts to overlap for more efficient allocation of resources. So can the Civil Service Bureau coordinate the efforts of civil service volunteer teams for efficiency? Thank you. Secretary. Thank you. For the commendation scheme, it does not focus only on the number of hours done. We have multiple awards. We have the Meritorious Award. So for the individual, if they do multiple volunteer activities that are very much diversified, we will give an award to the individual. So the standards are there. We have collaboration with various associations as well as care teams. We have actually disseminated information about care teams to the departments themselves, because there are a lot of care teams, and as you said, the care teams are most familiar with the situation in their neighborhoods. And say the EMSC, they are experts in, say, dealing with electrical and mechanical work, and it is only with care teams' knowledge that they know which households would need, say, traditional light bulbs replaced with energy efficient ones. So we think it is best that we leave to the departments to reach out to care teams themselves as they see appropriate. But there are also activities coordinated by the Civil Service Bureau. All right, thank you. No follow-up questions, Dr. So Chen Wing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last year, we saw an increase of 25% in terms of the hours of service of our civil service volunteer teams. This is very encouraging. We had over 20,000 participants, and the hours of service exceeded 111,000. So we have very strong civil service volunteer teams. When we were resisting the black-clad violence as well as fighting COVID, we had over 70 civil service volunteer teams working towards a very clear target. Today, without such clear goals or targets, how can the government deploy the civil service volunteer teams to make the good use of our volunteer teams? We have different types of volunteer works in Hong Kong, and many people are willing to contribute to working as volunteers. According to the government paper, the government has not been offering leaves for civil servants to do volunteer work. There are no insurance coverages or dedicated resources for civil servants to take part in volunteer work. So how can civil servants give full play to their abilities in taking part in volunteer work to serve the public, to offer information to the public, and to promote government policies? Members of the public would also like to talk to civil servants and communicate with them when they encounter any problems. You have over 70 volunteer teams within the civil service. They are in different government departments. I think government departments have to, with a sense of purpose, deploy these civil servants to do volunteer work instead of having our civil servants disseminate, for example, gift packages to the public. I want to know if the government has any plans to better deploy or make use of your civil servants to take part in volunteer work. There needs to be more purposeful deployment of your civil servants. Secretary, to deploy civil servants on purpose. Well, we have such examples. Over the past weekend, the Civil Service Bureau worked with the Digital Policy Office volunteer teams to offer services to our elderly people. DPO made use of their knowledge and expertise in technology. They taught elderly people how to use smartphones and how to use the government app I Am Smart, as well as other gerund technology. The DPO has been providing services not just over the past weekend by making use of their knowledge in digital technology. Early last year, our bureau worked with the DPO. We visited an elderly center to provide such services for our senior citizens. Some government departments they may not be able to make use of their professional knowledge when offering volunteer services. Take Correctional Services Department as an example. We do not necessarily have institutions or facilities in Hong Kong that require correctional services. However, they have a very huge volunteer team. They help with the relief work after, say, torrential rain and typhoons. The work that they took up may not necessarily have very direct relations with their day-to-day work. Take the police force as an example. They offer different types of volunteer services as well. They organized anti-deception activities for elderly people. They also brought young people to take part in sports activities. This may not be directly connected to their day-to-day work, but we do encourage government departments to make use of their professional knowledge when they take part in volunteer work. Say for Home Affairs Department, they also offer a diverse range of volunteer work. These are all very meaningful. I'd like to add one point. You said the CSD hasn't been able to make use of their knowledge or expertise. Well, can they offer help to rehabilitated persons? This can help them serve a greater function. Dr. Johnny Ng. Volunteer service is crucial for our society. It shows the level of civilization of our society. Civil servants, during spare time, they take up volunteer work. I have two questions. I remember in year 2022, I asked the government the same question. It was during COVID. Many people took part in volunteer work during COVID because there was such a need. And back then, I asked the administration if there was any record about the hours of service. Now I see an improvement. I see that there is record in terms of the number of hours of volunteer service in year 2024. I think there is a need for the government to keep such a record because it shows the role that civil servants play. In the mainland during COVID, their civil servants took part in a lot of volunteer service. There were movies and documentaries that showcased what their civil servants had done. I think this is very meaningful. This is just a view. Secondly, I'd like to ask about whether there are any issues with costs. The Kai Tak Sports Park is a very successful project. Civil servants took part in a number of drills. There were 5 test events involving over 100,000 people. According to media reports, you gave civil servants a $100 allowance. It's a traveling allowance. For civil servants who take part in volunteer work that offer help to children and elderly people, they do not get the same travel subsidy. Secretary. So yes, the test events at Kai Tak Sports Park, it is part of the civil servants' work. So civil servants could not refuse to attend the test events. Some civil servants, they had to go to the sports park directly to take part in the test events. That's why we offered them a travel allowance. For volunteer work, there is no travel allowance. So the civil servants have to take care of the costs themselves. That means the 3,700 volunteers who take part in the work of the national games, they won't get any travel subsidy as well. Is that right? For civil servants or other types of volunteers, they will get some allowances. For civil servants, they have to adhere to certain guidelines when they accept remuneration. We've already briefed the relevant government departments on the procedures, and we've also given them permission to do so. Mr. Dennis Leung. The Civil Service Bureau has been encouraging civil servants to take part in volunteer work, and I commend the Civil Service Bureau's effort. This has to do with how we can publicize the good stories of civil servants and how we can tell members of the public that civil servants, they, apart from their own work, during spare time, they also care for the community as well as those in need. Some civil servants, they use their spare time to engage in volunteer work. This is not considered as part of their job. If during their participation in volunteer service, there are accidents, how should we deal with them? Civil servants, they do not get medical benefits when they take part in volunteer service. Civil servants, when they take part in volunteer work, well, are there guidelines for civil servants who volunteer? Are there things that civil servants have to pay attention to when they commit to certain volunteer work? For example, should they talk to the insurance companies or the organizers whether they get insurance coverages? Also, will the Civil Service Bureau encourage existing departmental volunteer teams to raise funds themselves? So that they have money to take out insurance for civil servants who take part in volunteer work. Civil servants are government's assets. Civil servants who encounter accidents in volunteer work, it may affect the delivery of public service. Secretary, we ask civil servants to take into consideration risks that they may face when they take part in volunteer work. We do not encourage them to engage in high-risk activities. For large-scale events and activities, oftentimes organizers would take out insurance for their volunteers. So this is a protection for volunteers. For small-scale volunteer work, for example, relief work for those who suffered from natural disasters, volunteers, they take part in this service on their own initiative, and there are no organizations that take out insurance for them, so civil servants will have to be extra careful. We do not oppose to departmental volunteer teams in raising funds to take out insurance for their volunteers. If they have plans to do so, we would not object to that.
Mr. Kwok Wai-Kung. Hello? Thank you, Chair. I do support civil servants of their own accord participating in volunteer service. It is a way for them to serve society. It also gives off a positive impression for civil servants. So we actually asked before whether there would be any allowances or support, as some members asked at this meeting. We already knew the answer with no. So basically, if civil servants want to give the presents some of the people they serve, they need to pay for such out of their own wallets. We do also support the administration's approach in publicizing good stories of civil servants. There is a volunteer commendation scheme. I think with or without commendation, people will volunteer anyways. So I am not going to focus on this. Right now, civil service volunteer teams are restricted in some way. They need to go through their department's networks when trying to organize volunteer activities. I think it would be best if we can have cross-departmental activities or even collaboration with mainland and overseas organizations to have some exchanges. If possible, can the Civil Service Bureau coordinate the activities? I don't think it is a must because we have to see what the activities are, whether they are worth the effort. But if there are such activities that are worth supporting, would the Civil Service Bureau play a coordinating role? You may not need to actually promulgate the exchanges. I think you only need to provide some liaison assistance. Thank you. Secretary. I think for the number of civil service volunteer teams and the number of civil service volunteers, specifically, we are pretty much top in the world. If we can have more gatherings for different volunteer teams to conduct exchanges, as well as involve maybe the mainland or overseas organizations, if we can play a coordinating role, we're more than willing to do that. Alright, any follow-up questions? None? It's now my turn. Telling the good stories of civil servants is very important because we still have a number of unfilled vacancies. I talked to someone who are some youngsters. They think that civil service is not for them. I think sometimes they may be blinded by stereotypes. We do have the Civil Service Bureau filming some videos to publicize the good stories of civil servants. I think you need to think more clearly what kind of message you want to send with the videos. We actually had in the paper say that we are working with the White Elites Association to have those living in the youth hostels to participate in volunteer work, and actually civil servants will also participate in these activities, and through communication between the two groups we have seen more of those in youth hostels wanting to join civil service. I think we had similar efforts a few years ago, but then we kind of stopped. I think we should go on with this because we can see more in-depth exchanges and more in-depth communication that would actually encourage people to join civil service. That works more effectively than just holding career talks. I think we can do more in this regard. As for volunteer service, a lot of the people of Hong Kong are actively participating in volunteerism. They want to serve people with their own time. I think it would be best if we can leverage on the specific capabilities of the civil servants. We can also have more of the stories publicized in videos rather than just in press releases. I think you can just have another officer who is good at filming and they can just do some light editing. It shouldn't be significant in resource needed. I think you can think about this, Secretary. Of course, we want to have more in-depth exchanges with youth hostel residents for them to know more about the work of the civil service. Actually, it is as the chairman said, we do have some specific events to attract certain groups of people to join civil service. For example, on the 8th of March, we actually have specific stories of female civil servants and about their achievements. We think promoting these stories can attract people, especially young women, to join civil service because they know that civil service is somewhere where there's no glass ceiling for women. On festive occasions, for those who have to be on duty, these are civil servants with a commitment. Most people would be just celebrating the occasions, but these officers are working hard in their respective posts. We believe with sharing these stories, it can again be quite attractive for people so that they may want to join the civil service. We also go through our different social media platforms. We do post some clips that would publicize the good stories of civil servants. We welcome members' feedback on our style of filming and content. Thank you. If there are no other questions from members, this is the end of the discussion of this item. Any other business? If there's no other business, meeting adjourned. Thank you. Thank you for attending this meeting.